Hello. Yeah. Evening, everyone. Hope everyone's weeks went well. We're going to be continuing our study in the book of Samuel, First Samuel. Can everybody hear me pretty good? There we go. All right. I'm going to start at verse 12, chapter 2. Now, the sons of Eli were worthless men. They did not know the Lord. The custom of the priest with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling with a three-pronged fork in his hand, and he would thrust it into the pot or kettle. All that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did at Shiloh to all the Israelites that came there. Moreover, before the fat was burned, the priest's servant will come and say to the man who was sacrificing, "Give meat for the priest to roast, for he will not accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." And if the man said, "No, let them burn the fat first, then take as much as you wish," he would say, "No, you must give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for the men treated the offering with contempt. So I want to stop right there, and we kind of continue from chapter 1, where we were introduced to a character. Who were we introduced to? You remember? You remember her name? Hannah? Okay. And so we introduced to Hannah, and what would you say about Hannah? She was what? No what? No children. Yeah, she didn't have children. What else would we say about her character? How did she, like, as far as her family life? Say again? Very honorable, very good, honored the Lord, right? Very faithful. She was a praying mother. I mean, this woman was a hard praying woman, right? And so we introduced to this family dynamic. And if I had to kind of briefly talk about a subject, it's simply going to be family matters, right? Putting God back into the home. Um, I would have to say that her prayer, her persistence, her godly examples really set the tone for the house. And they weren't without some of their issues, right? Polygamy, they had some struggles and some family dilemmas, but by and large, a very good portrait of a good, healthy, godly family striving their best to be the people of God in the house, in their particular house. But here now, we're introduced to another character. And who is this other character we're introduced to? Eli's sons. Now, what does it say about Eli's sons? Because it doesn't give you the same, doesn't really speak the same about Eli's sons as it does Hannah and her family, right? We kind of get a different picture. We get one family, they're praying, they're worshiping, they're going up to the temple to worship year by year. But then we're introduced to this another family. Right out the gate, what does the Bible say about them? They were worthless. And something else very important. What else did it say about them? They did not know the Lord. Two very, very telling signs. And we're going to see how this family, in contrast to Hannah's family, the difference in the families and the difference in the results. And which is why I said it's going to be all family matters, putting God, first, putting God back into the home. So here you have, go back to the text. Eli's sons, they didn't know the Lord. But then it starts talking about some of the behavior, some of the things that they were doing, right? What are some of the things that it said they were doing? treating the offering with contempt. Okay, now it's kind of one of those things. Okay, what are you talking about? In what ways were they treating the offering with contempt? So the priests were allowed to eat of the offering. They were allowed to, you would burn the fat, the best portions, and after you give God His offering, you burn the fat. Then you were allowed to give the offering to the priest. And usually the priest took whatever was left over, and the best portions went to who? God. However, these guys said, no, wait a minute. The best portions come to me first. Right? So it's kind of like we're passing the offering plate around, and we're saying, hey, it's time to, give back to me, and then give back to the Lord. That's really what they're essentially saying. Hey, make sure I get my cut first, and then we're going to make sure God gets his cut. Not a very good telling sign. Yeah, a little loud there. Okay, not a very good, just not very good at all as it speaks to their character, and just everything about this is just not good. Not okay. And so you have a family that don't know God. A family that right now in this situation is completely godless. Now, who were Eli's two sons? What was their job description? What were they supposed to be doing? They were priests. So the person who should be directing you to God doesn't know God. That's a scary thought, right? Think about it. Every Sunday you come to church and we deliver a word from God. Could you imagine saying that, yes, our preachers and teachers, they don't know God. But yet get up here Sunday after Sunday and talk about God, but don't know God. No relationship with God. That is the situation. That is the difficult times that they were dealing with. You had leaders that were supposed to be interacting with God, someone who's supposed to be the mediator. If I'm down on my luck, if I'm struggling in my relationship, I'm supposed to be able to go to you and say, hey, I'm really having a hard time spiritually speaking. And you, being a priest, are supposed to be able to say, you know what? I got you. Let's go to God and pray. Let's go work this out. But the person that's supposed to be helping you doesn't know the Lord. So, very good question. How could they be priests and don't know the Lord? Anybody got to answer that? Before I answer that, anybody want to say yes? Yes, exactly. They were born into it. However, they were still had a standard. They still were supposed to read, supposed to study. You were supposed to pass this down to your son. You were supposed to introduce them. But somewhere along the way, that's why I said family matters. Somewhere in the house, somewhere along the way, that whatever Eli was supposed to translate to his sons got lost. Whatever happened, either he was a poor example, or either he didn't teach them, or maybe some other things happened, but whatever happened, something got lost. Now, however, keep in mind, during this time period, the period of the judges, very, very dark spiritual period. Widespread, people just weren't worshiping God. They weren't. They were the children of Israel in name only, but everything else about them was 100% pagan. They bore the name children of Israel, but they did not follow any of his ways. They were worshiping false gods. So you had people who had the title, but they didn't have the connection. And then going back to this, my whole point with this passage of scripture is that you have one family in which they're praying, in which Hannah's speaking blessings into her child, but then you have another family who, for some reason, they're taking God for granted. They're scorning the sacrifices, and as a result, what you have is just chaos. Let me keep reading. All right, verse 18, Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy clothed with linen ephod, and his mother used to make for him a little robe and take it to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. That's verse 18. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 22. Now Eli was very old, and he kept hearing all that his sons were doing to all of Israel, how they lay with women who were serving at the entrance of the tent. And he said to them, "Why do you do such things? For I hear of the evil dealings from all these people. No, my sons, it is no good report that I hear from the people spreading abroad." And so, completely corrupt, right? And we see scandals, we see bad things happen. It's nothing new, right? Corrupt spiritual leaders, then guess what? It happens today, right? But what I love is that Hannah and her family didn't use it as an excuse, right? They still served God to the best of their ability. They still held to the principles of God, even though the leaders of God didn't have anything to do with God. And so Eli rebukes his sons. He kind of calls them out, and it kind of seems like a good thing, right? It seems like he's being a good father, right? Because he said, "Hey, why are you guys doing this?" He's rebuking them. But we're going to see God kind of had a different perspective on it, in that God didn't feel like Eli did enough as a father to correct his children and keep them on the right path. All right. Verse 27, and there came a man to God, a man of God, to Eli, and he said to him, "Thus says the Lord, did I indeed reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Egypt, subject to the house of Pharaoh?" And he continues to talk about it, and he says, "Why," verse 29, "then do you scorn my sacrifices and my offerings that I command for my dwelling, and honor your sons above me by fattening yourselves on the choicest parts of every offering of my people of Israel?" And so basically, God rebukes him because he didn't. The text says he didn't constrain them. He didn't hold them back from doing evil. Now, keep in mind, these were grown adults. What do you think he could have been done at this point? I mean, it's not like he could put them over his knee and spank them. What do you think God was expecting? Because it's kind of a challenging thing, because you say, okay, God is basically saying, "I'm going to punish you because you didn't restrain your children or your sons. However, they're adults." And it's kind of like, okay, so what was God expecting? What do you think? So Eli was the head priest. His sons were priests. So you can essentially say he was the boss of the manager, right? He could have removed them from the position. Yes. Yes, absolutely. You could get kicked out. There was several. It was a whole lineage. So there were other lineages and other houses of Aaron that could have served as priests. And what God does says, since you didn't remove them, I'm going to remove you and your entire family. And God essentially, Eli and his entire lineage, gets rid of them, and none of them will serve as priests ever again, because he didn't do the job and rebuke his children, or he rebuked them, but he didn't discipline them. Right? And this goes back to that family matters, is the importance of family, and not only being there and teaching, but also the importance of family holding each other accountable. Very, very big a part of being a family. Someone that says, "Hey, bud, that's not it. You should not be doing that," and holding them accountable. And that what was lacking, I believe. But there's also in verse 29, because he says, how you honored yourselves and your sons by fattening yourselves on the choicest parts. So it also implies that almost like Eli was kind of in on the fix. Because he said fattening of yourselves to Eli. So it almost implies that Eli was also getting some of the cut cream off the top. And which would make sense, right? Because how can I correct you and hold you accountable for something that I'm participating in? But long story long, you have a family that is following God, is praying. Then you have another family that is essentially doing whatever they want to do. God is not first in that home. It's obvious God is not first in that home. And as a result, you have a corrupt priesthood. And guess what? What do you think that corrupt priesthood would have done to the people of the congregation? How do you think they would have felt? coming in Sunday after Sunday to someone who's essentially abusing their authority. That's kind of disheartening. That's discouraging, right? I mean, for some people, it make you almost want to just give up. So not only is your internally your family not where it needs to be, but now your lack of discipline, accountability, your failings as a family unit, it's now impacting the congregation or the assembly. And now, guess what? It's going to impact the nation of God. And I said all that to say is that, putting family back in the home, this really hits because I have to take a look at myself and say, okay, am I doing everything that I can do to ensure that I'm putting God back into my home? He said they did not know God. The best thing that I can do for my children is not getting a good education. It's not setting them up on a good career path. Those things are good. But the best thing that I can do is impart to my child the wisdom and knowledge of God. Not that the other things aren't important, but the primary thing that I can do, the thing that I pray about most is to one day say that, okay, you know what? Those guys know God. I think they're getting ready to come. I'm going to wrap this up. I don't want to have to say that they're worthless and they don't know God. They're rich. They have great careers, degrees in education, but they're worthless and they don't know God. Because that translates to all other impacts. You look at the entire nation this time, how corrupt they were. Was the corruption of the nation impacting the home, or was it impacting of the home, the corruption of the nation, a reflection of the fact that God wasn't in very many homes? And I said it to say the most important thing today is not getting the Ten Commandments in the courthouse. It's not getting the Bible in the schools. The most important thing is that the Ten Commandments are in my house. And that I'm teaching people the knowledge of God, the character of God, and I am being God in my home. Because then they go forth into their neighborhoods and their communities. And whatever the lessons I put on them, they reflect that. And then they turn into adults, and they affect the communities, and then in turn affect society, and then in turn affect culture. And I think that is a challenge for the church today, is that it is not for me to contract out those responsibilities to anyone else. Yes, youth ministries are great, but it's not Jordan's responsibility. That is my responsibility. Yes, I'm glad that they're allowing prayer in schools, but I need to put prayer in my homes. I can't begin to celebrate and be thankful that prayer in schools if I don't pray and fall on my knees at home. It's a moot point. It does nothing. Because what happened, all of this you see is a result when the people of God stop being the people of God. In our homes and out in the world, all sorts of chaos ensues. Think about most tragedy all throughout society, right? Where you have a large population of Christians, right? Or people that profess to be Christians. Think about, I'm leaving you with this thought. Think about the Holocaust, how bad that was, and how the Allied forces had to break that up because of just horrible. Think about if everybody in that country that professed to be Christian said, you know what? I don't care what your law is, Hitler. I don't care what your rule is, but I'm not turning them in, and I'm not selling them out. And if you want to get to them, you got to come to us, and the fight come with it. And every single person that said to be a Christian did that, you wouldn't need the Allied forces, right? Because it starts in the home. When we become the people of God and live that out, then I'm telling you, everywhere we go begins to be transformed. I think, is the boys ready yet? So I just want to leave you with that thought, family matters, putting God back into the home, being the family like Hannah, as opposed to being the contrast, worthless scoundrels that don't know God. That's what I don't want to be. All right, I think the gentlemen are ready for us. I believe. Let me check. You guys ready? Yeah, here they come. All right, so just continue to read chapters 3 through 5 for next week. We're just going to continue on the book of Samuel. Just keep reading. It's a great read.